virtually everything that we see, from everything from a big feature film to even these like talking heads on television. Really, everybody talks as if they had all the answers, and everyone is perfectly positioned, and everything is coming out of a teleprompter or out of a script. And I have a little problem with that, because I do feel that that's kind of sureness, that kind of pseudo confidence makes it look as if the entire world has it together and you don't. And the filmic medium, the medium of the moving image, video, etc., is increasingly used to kind of look really slick and really like everybody who you look at has all the answers, and there's no moment for thinking. Somehow, even in a film, you go from the moment when an actor or a character is struggling with something, and then suddenly, bam, they just wake up in the middle of the night and the answer comes there, and then the next day you see them going back to work and telling their boss whatever, and suddenly their life just wakes up. Yeah, that's not real life, okay? That's not real life. Real life happens in every space between those spaces. Real life is about not actually having sudden insight. Most times it's about trying to reflect about circumstances before you actually have any real confidence that your decision is necessary and that you have to decide in one way versus another. Most times it's really more a dilemma than anything else. And a lot of times it's a dilemma where you fight yourself. And so how does then a medium that looks more like a mirror than any other medium, namely the medium of film and video, how does a medium that's that reflective visually, come to today, a time when there's no reflection at all in it whatsoever? It's the least reflective of all the media, because as I say, everything, right down to even music videos, everything is carefully choreographed and carefully done. Let's say you have a guy who's like being reflective, and how does he become reflective of himself? So here's an example of using the medium itself in a reflective way. Yeah. I was concerned about the very little amount of treatment and analysis that essentially happened in the making of works that took a very long period of time. Film, sometimes musical works, and to be sure, books. These things just sort of appear out of nowhere, and suddenly here they come born out in the full light of day, and there's no explanation whatsoever about how that happened. Fundamentally, like even making a film, even a documentary, something like that, you would go through so many pratfalls and so many pitfalls and so many hurdles and so many all kinds of different denying and resisting forces around you in order to create a work which then you would produce to the world, which would then see it for an hour or 2 hours as if, clearly out of the blue there was no ever real understanding of how much it took to make a film. So much of it really essentially just goes unused and cast by the wayside. The famous phrase of the cutting room floor is in a way probably for me the most tragic and saddest of all of the phrases in any creative art, because the cutting room floor represents material that was sought after, was gathered, was obtained with the purest of intentions. You really wanted this to come into the work, and everybody who participated in it fundamentally had the same interest. Everybody was invested in it. But because maybe it didn't fit a 2-hour format, or it was in some way not super perfect for the passive and perfectly attentive audience model that we have of someone just sitting there in a movie theater and not having absolutely any other distractions, then any kind of imperfection means that that work has to be cast aside for one reason or another. But I actually like the idea that the process itself of creating something is really evidence enough that you had purity in your heart to go after it. And I could be talking to you right now, as I am, and there could be some kind of non-alternative, you know, some kind of strange background, and you wouldn't see this in a movie theater. What is this that I'm doing, right? But in a way, I'm inviting a little bit of ambiguity, and a lot of times you don't really know what the end product happens to be. I could stop for a minute, I could drink some water, have a thought. You might think I'm actually either making this up or reading this off a script, notes, etc. We don't really know. Well, that's actually part of what life is about anyhow. So the idea for me of capturing life in some way that's meaningful is interesting, but the notion of trying to frame it in a way that looks as if it's some perfect script coming out of the mouths of perfect people who are perfectly made up and telling some perfectly balanced story that has a perfectly timed, perfect ending at the end. For me, you know, that's not been my life. And I'm not sure that anybody who I've really ever respected has ever led that life either.